Chapter 19. The Goldilocks rule: how to stay motivated in life and work. In 1955, Disneyland had just opened in 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 Haim, California, when a 10-year-old boy walked in and asked for a job. Labor laws were loose back then, and the boy managed to land a position selling guidebooks, selling guidebooks for for $1.50. One for for 50 for point $0.5 a piece. Within a year, he has transitioned to this magic shop, where he learned tricks from the older employees. He experimented with jokes and tried out simple routines of visitors of visitors. Soon 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 he Soon he discovered that what he loved was not performing magic, but performing in general. He set his sights on becoming a comedian. Beginning in his teenage years, he started performing in little clubs around Los Angeles. The crowds were small and his act was short. He was rarely on stage for more than 5 minutes. Most of the people in the crowd was too busy drinking or talking with friends to pay attention. One night, he literally delivered his stand-up routine to an empty club. It was not glamorous work, but there was no doubt he was getting better. His first his first his first routines would only 1 or 2 minutes. By high school, his material has experienced to include a 5 minute a 5 minute act, and a few years later a 10-minute show. A 19, he was performing weekly for 20 minutes. He had to read 3 poems during the shows just to make the routine long enough, but his skills continue to process. He spent another decade experimenting, adjusting, and practicing. He took a job as a television writer, and gradually he was able to land his own appearance in, in his own appearance on talk shows. By the mid 1970s, he had worked his way into being a regular guest on The Tonight Show and Saturday Night Live. Finally, after nearly 15 years of work, the young man rose to fame. He he toured 60 countries in 63 days. The 72 cities in 80 days. The 72 cities in 80 days. The 85 cities in 90 days. He had 1806 he had 18,695 people attend 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 one show in Ohio. Attend another 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 14,000. Another 45,000 tickets were sold for his 3-day show in New York. He captured to the top of his genre, and become one of the most successful comedians of his all time. He is Steve Martin. Steve Martin. Let's search on him. Steve Martin, the American comedian. Okay, nice. Martin's story offers a franchising perspective on what it takes to stick with habits for long run. Co- comedy 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 is not for the timid. It is hard to imagine a situation that would would strike fear into the hearts of more people than performing along on stages and failing to get a single laugh. And yet and yet Steve Martin faced this fear every week for 18 years. For 18 years, in his words, 10 years spent learning, 4 years spent refining, and 4 years as a wild success. 4 years as a wild success. Fa- faced faced this fear, not faced this fear, every week for. Why is it that some people like Martin stick with their habits, whether practicing jokes or drawing cartoons or playing guitar, while most of us struggling to stay motivated? How do we design habits that pull us in rather than ones that fade away? Scientists have been studying this question for many years. While there is still much to learn, one of the most consistent findings is that the the way to maintain motivation and achieve peak levels of desire is to work on tasks of just manageable difficulty. Just manageable difficulty. The human brain loves challenge, but only if it is within an optimal zone of difficulty. If you love tennis and try to play a serious match against a 4-year-old, you will quickly become bored. It is too easy. You will win every point. In contrast, if you play a professional tennis player like Roger Federer or Serena Williams, you will you will quickly lose motivation because the match is too difficult. Now, consider playing tennis against someone who is your equal. As the game progresses, you win a few points and you lost a few. You have a good chance of winning, but only if you really try. Your focus narrows, distractions fade away, and you find yourself truly invested in the task at hand. This is a challenge of just manageable difficulty, and it is a prime example of the Goldilocks rule. Goldilocks rule. The Goldilocks rule states the human experience peak motivation when working on tasks are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. The Goldilocks rule. Graph, if I draw that, this is the graph. Goldilocks rule, the Goldilocks zone. This is the motivation, this is boredom, this is failure, and this is the ideal when motivation peaked, sorry. Figure 15. This figure 15 said that maximum motivation occurs when facing a challenge just manageable difficulty. Is psychology research. This is known as the Yerkes-Dodson law. Yerkes-Dodson law, which describes the optimal level of arousal as the midpoint between boredom and anxiety. Martin's comedy career is an excellent example for the Goldilocks rule in practice. Each year he expanded his comedy routine, but only by minute or two. He has always adding new material, but he also kept a few jokes that were guaranteed to get laughs. There were just enough victories to keep him motivated and just enough mistakes to keep him working hard. When you are starting a new habit, it is important to keep the behavior as easy as possible. You can stick with it even when conditions are not perfect. This is an idea we covered in detail while discussing the third law of behavioral change. when a habit has been established. However, it is important to continue to advance in small ways. There's little improvements and new challenges keep you engaged. And if you hit the Goldilocks zone just right, you can achieve a flow state. A flow state is the experience of being in the zone and fully immersed, fully immersed in an activity. Scientists have tried to quantify this feeling. They found that to achieve a flow state, a task must be roughly 4% beyond your current abilities. In real life, it is typically not it is typically not feasible to to quantify the difficulty of an action in this way. But the core idea of the Goldilocks rule remain: working on challenges of just manageable difficulty, something on the parameter of your ability seems crucial for maintaining motivation. Improvement requires a delicate balance. You need to regularly research for challenges that push you to your edge to push you to your age, while continuing to make enough progress to stay motivated. Behaviors need to remain novel in order of them to stay attractive and satisfying. Without variety, we get bored, and without boredom is perhaps the greatest villain of on the quest for self improvement. Boredom. Now question arises: how to stay focused when you get bored working on your goals? Okay, after my baseball career ended, I was looking for a new sport. I joined a weightlifting team, and one day an elite coach visited our gym. He had worked with thousands of athletes during his long career, including a few Olympians. I introduced myself, and we began talking about the process of improvement. What the difference between the best athletes and everyone else? I asked. When do the really successful people do that most don't? He mentioned the factors you might expert except he mentioned the factors you might expect: genetics, luck, talent. But then he said something I wasn't expecting. At some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same lifts over and over and over. His answer surprised me because it is a different way of thinking about work ethic. People talk about getting aim amped, amped up to amped up to work on their goals, whether it is business or sports or art. You hear people say things like, it all comes down to passion, or you have to really want it. As a result, many of us get depressed when we lose focus on motivation, because we think that successful people have some bottomless reserve of passion. But this but this quote but 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 this coach was saying that really successful people feel the same lack of motivation as everyone else. The difference is that they still find a way to show up despite the feeling of boredom. Mastery requires practice, but the more you practice something, the more boring and routine it becomes. Once the beginner gains have been made, and we learned what to expect, our interest starts to fade. Sometimes it happens even faster than that. All you have to do is set the gym a few days in a row, or publish a couple of blog posts on time, and letting one day slip doesn't feel like much. things are going well. It is easy to rationalize taking a day off because you are a good place. The greatest threat to success is not failure but boredom. But uh, but but boredom. We get bored. We get bored with habits because they stop delighting us. The outcome becomes expected, and as our habits become ordinary, we start derailing our progress to seek novelty. Perhaps this is why we get caught up in a never-ending cycle, jumping from one workout to the next, one diet to the next, one business to the next. As soon as we experience the slightest dip in motivation, we been seeking a new strategy, even if the old one was still working. As 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 Machiavelli noted, men desire novelty to such an extent that those who are doing well wish for a change as much as those who are doing badly. Perhaps this is why many of the most habit forming products are those that provide continuous forms of novelty. Video games provide visual novelty, porn provides sexual novelty, junk foods provide culinary novelty. Each of these experience offer continual elements of surprise. In psychology, this is known as variable reward. Slot machines are the most common real world example. A gambler hits the jackpot every every now and then, but not at any predictable interval. The pace of rewards varies. This this variance leads to the greatest spike of dopamine, enhances memory recall, and accelerates habit formation. Variable rewards won't create craving. That is you cannot take a reward people are uninterested in. Give it to them at a variable interval and hope it will change their mind. But they are a powerful way to amplify the cravings we already experience because they reduce boredom. The sweet the spo- the sweet spot of desire occurs at 50-50 splits between success and failure. Half of time you get what you want, half of time you don't. You need just enough winning of expectation.